Awakening is not a comfortable process. It is not a polite conversation with the universe. It is more like being torn apart by your own soul. Everything you once believed begins to collapse. The structures that held you up start to crumble, and you begin to realize that perhaps they were never truly yours to begin with. Most people fear this collapse, so they turn back to sleep. The mind clings to the familiar, even if it's painful. It says, "At least I know who I am. At least I know where I stand." But awakening shatters that illusion. It reveals that what you called me was just a collection of borrowed thoughts, beliefs, and identities handed down by parents, culture, and time. Suddenly, you see through it all. And that's terrifying, because if you are not who you thought you were, then who are you? Most people never survive that question. They drown in it, trying to rebuild the same mask instead of seeing beyond it. When you begin to awaken, it feels like betrayal. Betrayal of your old self, betrayal of your old gods. The things that once gave you comfort, religion, success, relationships, begin to lose their meaning. You start to sense that none of these things can fill the vast space that's opening inside you. And so people panic. They call it depression, anxiety, existential crisis. But it's not sickness. It's the sacred dismantling of illusion. The spiritual path is not about gaining more peace, more love, more light. It's about losing everything that blocks your direct perception of truth. And that loss feels like death. When I say most people never survive their awakening, I don't mean their bodies perish. I mean their old selves do not allow the new to emerge. They resist, they cling, they bargain. They try to turn awakening into another achievement, another badge of pride. They want enlightenment without surrender, truth without destruction. But that's like wanting to swim without getting wet. Awakening demands everything. It will strip you of all falsehoods until only the real remains. It takes you into chaos, into the unknown, where every identity dissolves. That's why most people run back into the safety of distraction. They fill their minds with noise, work, relationships, entertainment, anything to avoid sitting with the silence that exposes the illusion of the self. But if you can stay with that silence, even for a moment, something miraculous happens. You begin to sense that behind all your fears, behind all your losses, there is something watching. And that something is you. It's not the you that worries, that plans, that strives to become spiritual. It's the pure witness, the one who sees everything yet remains untouched. The tragedy is that most people never discover this deeper awareness because they never let the old die completely. They stop halfway. They awaken enough to question everything, but not enough to trust the fall. And awakening requires the fall. You cannot awaken while still clinging to your old comforts. You must allow yourself to dissolve, like a drop of water returning to the ocean. Only then can you realize that you were never separate. This process is not poetic when you're in it. It feels like loss. Your relationships may break, your ambitions may fade. You may find yourself unable to relate to the world as you once did. You may feel isolated, misunderstood, even condemned. But that isolation is the womb of transformation. You are being reborn into a consciousness that no longer depends on validation or control. Most people, however, can't stand the in-between. They want immediate clarity, instant peace. They don't realize that awakening is not a destination. It's a continuous dying and being reborn, over and over again, endlessly. This is why the spiritual journey often begins with despair. Despair strips you bare. It leaves you with nothing to hold on to. And when you have nothing left to hold, you finally begin to see. You were the silent space in which thinking and doing appeared. This realization frightens the ego because it means its story is over. Yet in that ending, lies the most profound freedom. You no longer need to prove yourself. You no longer chase meaning, because you have become meaning itself, pure being, effortless and complete. But remember, awakening does not make you superior. It makes you simple. It brings you down to the earth, into the present moment, where life flows naturally without effort. The awakened man does not escape the world. He becomes one with it. He laughs, he cries, he loves, but no longer believes he is the one doing these things. Life lives through him. That's the beauty of it. But for most people, this surrender is unbearable. They want to awaken, but on their own terms. They don't realize that the only thing standing between them and awakening is the one who wants it. So the spiritual path is not about gaining control, but losing it. It's about seeing that you were never in control to begin with. The more you fight to preserve the self, the more painful awakening becomes. But once you stop resisting, the chaos becomes music. The confusion becomes clarity. You realize that the destruction of the old is not punishment, it is grace. Most people never survive awakening because they try to survive it. But awakening is not about survival, it's about surrender. And once you surrender, you don't survive as who you were. You awaken as what you've always been. The moment you surrender, the fight ends. The suffering was never caused by awakening itself, but by resistance to it. When you stop resisting, something incredible happens. The energy that was once used to maintain the illusion begins to flow freely again. Life becomes lighter, spontaneous. You stop taking your thoughts so seriously because you see them for what they are, clouds passing through the vast sky of awareness. But this stage, this freedom, comes only after the storm. Most people quit before this dawn arrives. Believing the darkness means they've failed, when in truth, they were closer than ever. The modern world has made awakening sound like a luxury. People chase it as though it's a product they can buy. Courses, retreats, quick fixes. But awakening is not an experience you add to yourself. It is the falling away of the self who wants experiences. You cannot possess enlightenment because enlightenment is the end of possession. That's why the path feels cruel to the ego. It takes everything it can cling to. You may lose ambitions that once defined you, but what you gain cannot be lost again. You begin to see that everything is connected, that there is no separation between the observer and the observed. You look at a tree, and for a moment, you don't see it as an object out there. You see yourself in it, the same life expressing itself in a different form. This vision is not imagination. It is reality seen without distortion. The tragedy is that most people never glimpse this truth because they're too busy looking for it in the future. But awakening is always now. It happens in this breath, this silence, this ordinary moment that we so often overlook. Awakening is not the end of human life. It's the beginning of real living. When you realize you are not separate, your actions naturally become harmonious. Compassion arises, not as a moral duty, but as a spontaneous expression of unity. You don't try to be kind, you simply are, because you see yourself in everyone. But again, the ego can sneak back in. It will try to claim even this realization. It will say, I am enlightened. And the moment it does, it's back in the dream. Awakening is not a permanent state for the ego, it's the disappearance of it. When you find yourself lost, uncertain, or afraid during your awakening, remember this: confusion is part of the process. The seed must break before the tree can grow. The darkness is not your enemy, it's your gestation. Most people never survive their awakening because they don't trust the breaking. They think they're falling apart when they're actually falling open. What you're losing is not life, but the illusion of control over life. Once that illusion dissolves, everything you were seeking, peace, Clarity, love, reveals itself to have been here all along, patiently waiting for you to stop searching and simply see. The old you dies screaming. It fights with every breath, trying to preserve its story. It says, who will I be if I let go? But you don't need to answer that question, because the one asking it isn't real. The moment you stop feeding that voice, a deeper intelligence begins to move through you. You start to live by intuition instead of fear, by trust instead of control. And life, once chaotic and heavy, becomes a kind of dance. You don't choreograph it, you move with it. That's the rhythm of awakening, to dance with existence instead of running from it. Awakening is not a spiritual escape. It's the most radical engagement with life possible. It doesn't take you away from the world, it brings you back into it with new eyes. Even the simplest things, a drop of rain, a stranger's smile, the sound of your own breathing, become miracles because they are no longer filtered through thought. You experience them directly. This is what the mystics called seeing the world as it is. Most people are too busy thinking about life to actually live it. Awakening ends that distraction and returns you to the raw, vivid immediacy of being. Awakening does not mean life stops being painful. It means you no longer resist pain. You no longer build stories around it. You allow it to rise and fall like a wave. The enlightened person feels deeply joy, sorrow, beauty, loss, but doesn't cling to any of it. They know that everything, no matter how intense, is temporary. This understanding frees you from suffering. You stop trying to make life permanent. You let it flow. And in that flow, you discover a peace that isn't dependent on what happened. It's the peace of being aligned with the movement of life itself. The reason so few survive their awakening is because they try to understand it instead of experiencing it. The intellect can take you to the door, but it cannot walk through. You must let go of analysis, let go of labels, and step into not knowing. True awakening begins when you surrender your need to explain everything. When you can rest in mystery without fear, you become free. Because life itself is mystery, always changing, always becoming. The awakened one doesn't demand answers. He dances with the question, trusting that the rhythm of existence will reveal exactly what needs to be known. If you find yourself in the middle of awakening and it feels unbearable, know this: it's supposed to. You are shedding lifetimes of conditioning. You are dissolving illusions that have been held by humanity for centuries. The pain you feel is not personal, it's collective. You're healing the mind of the world through your own transformation. So be patient with yourself. Don't rush to be done. Awakening is not a finish line, it's a deepening. Every moment, life invites you to wake up a little more, to surrender a little more, to love a little more fully. That's the eternal unfolding. At some point, something beautiful happens. The struggle stops. Not because you've found all the answers, but because you've realized there were never any questions to begin with. The mind falls silent, and you begin to laugh, because the truth was never hidden. It was always right here, in plain sight, disguised as the ordinary. You realize that what you were searching for was the one who was searching. And in that moment, all separation vanishes. You see that the universe has never been outside you. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in motion. This realization cannot be spoken. It can only be lived. When you look at the world through awakened eyes, you see beauty even in chaos, meaning even in endings. Life is no longer something happening to you, it is something happening as you. You stop asking for purpose because you have become purpose itself. Every breath, every moment is the expression of the whole. But don't make this into an idea. The moment you think you've grasped it, it slips away. Awakening is not a conclusion, it's a continuous discovery. It keeps deepening as long as you remain open to wonder. If everything is falling apart, remember, you are not being punished. You are being purified. The life you built on illusion is dying so that the truth can live through you. Don't try to save the old structure. Let it burn. Out of the ashes, something magnificent will emerge. Not a new version of you, but the end of the idea of you. And in that ending, you will find peace so vast, so complete, that the word awakening no longer even applies. There is just this infinite, silent, luminous now. They think they are losing themselves, but they are only losing their chain. The ego cannot survive truth, and that's precisely the point. What dies in awakening was never real to begin with. And what remains when all illusion falls away is life itself, vibrant, eternal, unbroken. You are that. You have always been that. The rest was only a dream. So don't fear your awakening. Fear staying asleep, because to remain, it is a most peculiar thing, you see, that a human being can spend an entire lifetime searching for themselves while never realizing they were never truly lost. And yet that is the great game we are all playing, the cosmic game of hide and seek. The universe pretending not to be itself, wandering through space and time in the disguise of you and me. Now, somewhere along the way, we forgot this game. We began to take the disguise rather seriously. We began to believe that this mask we wear, this name, this history, this bundle of memories was who we really are. And so the play became a tragedy. Because when the actor forgets he's in a play, the suffering feels very real indeed. But let us begin at the beginning, if such a thing can be said to exist. Imagine, if you will, the moment you were born, not the event itself, but the sense of entering a world that was already in motion. Nobody asked you if you wished to be here. You arrived as a mystery, blinking into a mystery. And the first thing you learned, almost immediately, was that you were something separate. The doctor said, it's a boy, or it's a girl. Someone gave you a name. Someone said, this is you. And in that instant, the great forgetting began. You see, the child does not know that there is a line between itself and the world. When a baby cries, it believes the universe is crying. When it laughs, it believes the whole sky is laughing with it. But very soon, we are taught otherwise. We are told where we end and where everything else begins. That's the first illusion, that there is an inside and an outside, that you are here and the world is there. We even speak of it that way. I came into this world. But that's not how it happened at all. You did not come into this world. You came out of it in precisely the same way a wave comes out of the ocean or a leaf grows out of a tree. You are not a stranger here. You are the universe expressing itself as this particular form for a while. And yet, because of language, because of conditioning, because of fear, we begin to imagine ourselves as isolated fragments. We identify with the body, with the name, with the narrative. And we say, I am this, and nothing more. But tell me, where exactly does this I begin? If I draw a line around your body, is that truly the border of you? Because the air you breathe becomes your blood, and your blood becomes your thought, and your thought changes the world around you. So where do you stop and the world begin? It's quite impossible to say, isn't it? The whole thing is one continuous process, yet our minds have divided it up for convenience. We draw lines, make maps, categorize, define. But the map, you see, is never the territory. The word is never the thing. The idea of you is not you. And yet, we have mistaken the symbol for the reality. This is why people suffer. Because we have been hypnotized by words by images, by the great myth of separateness. The ancient Hindus called this Maya, the illusion that tricks consciousness into believing it is something apart from itself. And from this illusion springs all the great human dramas: fear, greed, ambition, loneliness, the endless craving to become something more. When you think you are a separate being, the universe becomes a threat. Everything outside is either something to be conquered or something to be avoided. You must protect yourself. You must compete. You must achieve. And so you spend your life struggling to survive, never realizing that the very energy of that struggle is the same energy that moves the stars. It is rather like a wave on the ocean trying not to be wet. The wave says, I must maintain my shape, my identity. I must fight against all the other waves. And in doing so, it forgets that it is the ocean itself. You and I are doing exactly that. We have become obsessed with being somebody rather than simply being. Now, this forgetting is not a mistake. It's part of the game. The universe hides itself from itself so that it can experience the joy of rediscovery. The darkness is necessary for light to recognize itself. The silence gives meaning to sound. And in the same way, forgetting who you are is the prelude to awakening. But the tragedy of our modern life is that we've made the forgetting permanent. We have built entire civilizations around the idea of separation. We have systems that reward competition and punish stillness. We have machines that amplify distraction. We measure worth in numbers, and we mistake productivity for purpose. And so, the game has lost its laughter, the play has forgotten its script. You can see this in the way people live. They move as if haunted, always chasing, always becoming, never arriving. They think salvation lies in the next promotion, the next purchase, the next achievement. But every time they reach the next thing, it dissolves like mist, because what they are truly searching for cannot be owned, cannot be earned, cannot even be found. It can only be remembered. And so the question arises, who or what is it that has forgotten? Who is this I that believes it is lost? If you look closely, you'll find something extraordinary. You'll find that the one who seeks is the very thing being sought. You'll find that beneath all the noise and confusion, there is a silence watching everything. That silence is what you truly are. When you close your eyes at night and the whole world disappears, that silence remains. When your thoughts fade for a brief moment, something is still there, isn't it? The awareness that notices the absence of thought, that's you. Not the story, not the name, not the body, the awareness itself, that which never comes and never goes. But we are so accustomed to looking outward that we miss it. We keep expecting truth to appear in some grand revelation when it has been quietly humming beneath everything all along. Like a song that never ends, only changes its tune. And so, to remember who you are is not to add something new. It is to remove what was never real. It is to peel away the layers of conditioning, fear, and pretense until only the simple fact of being remains. That is where the journey truly begins, not in acquiring, but in noticing, not in striving, but in seeing clearly. You cannot become yourself because you already are. You can only wake up to that fact. And when you do, life begins to feel less like a prison and more like a play. The actors are the same, the scenery unchanged, but suddenly the story is light again. The laughter returns. The wave remembers it is the ocean. That is the beginning of remembering. That is the end of the dream of separation. When you awaken, even for a moment, to the truth of what you are, something remarkable happens. The world does not change, and yet it is utterly transformed. The same faces pass by, the same routines unfold, but there is a new quality to it all, a kind of luminous playfulness, as if the universe has been holding its breath, waiting for you to notice the joke. But it doesn't end there, because the moment we catch a glimpse of truth, the mind rushes in to claim it. It says, "Ah, I understand now. I've figured it out." And that, you see, is the second forgetting. The ego, clever as ever, puts on spiritual clothing and pretends to have seen the light. It becomes the seeker who has found. But remember, the moment you think you've captured truth, you've already lost it. Truth cannot be caught because it is what is doing the catching. It's a very curious situation. The more earnestly you pursue enlightenment, the more it recedes from you. Like chasing your own shadow, the harder you try, the further it slips away. Because you are what you seek. You are the awareness that is looking. And so, to look for yourself is a kind of cosmic comedy. The eye cannot see itself directly, only by reflection. This is why so many spiritual traditions emphasize stillness. Not stillness as in rigid quietness, but the stillness of understanding that there's nowhere to go, that the very act of seeking keeps the illusion alive. To sit quietly and observe is to see that the one doing the seeking is made of the same stuff as the sky, as the wind, as the stars. But here's where the pretending comes in. Even after this realization, life continues. You still have to eat, work, speak, love, and lose. You still stub your toe. You still get caught in emotion. You still wake up in the middle of the night wondering what it all means. The difference is subtle but profound. You now know it's a play. You still act your part, but you no longer mistake the mask for the face. You see, life is not something you overcome. It's something you dance with. The waves do not resist the tide. They move in harmony with it. So, too, does the awakened person move with life, not against it, not above it, but with it. To live this way is to rediscover innocence. A childlike wonder returns, not because you are naive, but because you are no longer cynical. You begin to see that everything is part of the same unfolding. The pain, the joy, the confusion, even the boredom, all of it belongs. All of it is the universe pretending to be separate, pretending to forget, so it can rediscover itself anew. But beware, the mind loves to make a project out of awakening. It says, now I must maintain my spiritual state, I must be mindful all the time. And so it creates yet another identity, the enlightened self. But that too is part of the game. The pretending continues, only now it's cloaked in holiness. The only way out is to see that there is no way out. You cannot escape the play because you are the play. You cannot stop pretending because pretending is part of what you are. The trick, then, is not to end the pretending, but to enjoy it, to see through it without denying it, to laugh at the cosmic joke rather than trying to explain it. Think of life as a grand symphony. Each note, each instrument has its place. Some play melodies, others dissonance. But the beauty lies in the whole, not in any single part. You are both the music and the musician, the listener and the sound. And to live with that awareness is to move through life with a certain grace, not the stiff grace of discipline, but the flowing grace of trust. Trust is the highest form of intelligence. It's not blind belief, it's participation. It's saying yes to the unknown. It's stepping into the rhythm without needing to know the choreography. Because when you trust the flow of life, you find it carries you exactly where you need to be. This doesn't mean you never fall. Of course you fall. But now you understand that even falling is part of the dance. You understand that pain is not punishment, it's the universe moving through you, rearranging, refining, renewing. Every tear, every stumble is another reminder that you are alive. And perhaps that's what we forget most easily, that to be alive is not to be perfect, but to participate. The stars burn and collapse, the trees grow and decay, everything changes, and that change is not a flaw, it's the very expression of beauty. In the end, awakening is not about rising above life, but sinking fully into it. It's not about being calm all the time, but about being real all the time. It's about allowing the whole spectrum of existence to play through you, the laughter, the fear, the tenderness, the confusion, and recognizing that you are not any single note, but the silence from which all of them arise. And so, when you remember who you are, you don't vanish into some mystical void. You re-enter the world with open eyes. You smile at the absurdity of it all. You forgive more easily. You laugh more deeply. You become softer, not weaker. Wiser, not detached. You realize that love is not a feeling, but a way of seeing. You begin to recognize yourself everywhere, in the eyes of a stranger, in the sound of the rain, in the passing wind, because how could you not? The one who once believed they were lost now sees that there was nowhere to go. The one who searched the stars now sees that the light was always within. The pretending continues. But now it is joyful. You play your part beautifully because you know it's a part. You cry when the story calls for tears, and you laugh when the scene becomes absurd. And when the curtain falls, you bow not in defeat, but in gratitude. For you have remembered the secret. The universe keeps whispering that it was you all along. And so, the remembering deepens. For what begins as a glimpse slowly ripens into a way of being, a quiet knowing that hums beneath everything you do. You still move through the world as a person, with a name and a story, but something within you no longer clings so tightly to that story. You wear it lightly now, as you would a costume at a festival. You play your part with sincerity, but you no longer mistake it for who you truly are. This is where the real transformation begins, not in grand revelations or supernatural moments, but in the smallest, most ordinary acts. Making tea, walking through the rain, waiting at a stoplight. You start to notice how extraordinary the ordinary really is. The smell of earth after a storm, the texture of a wooden table beneath your hand, the faint echo of laughter drifting through a window. You begin to live with an intimacy that no philosophy can capture. This is what the mystics mean when they speak of heaven on earth. It is not a place elsewhere. It is this very life, seen clearly, without the veil of judgment or expectation. To live this way is to rediscover wonder. You see that everything, absolutely everything, is sacred because it exists. Even your own confusion, your sorrow, your restlessness, these too are part of the divine dance. But the mind, ever restless, will still try to intervene. It whispers that such peace cannot last, that surely this stillness will vanish. It begins to search for ways to hold on to the state of grace, to capture it like a photograph. Yet every attempt to hold on to stillness destroys it. For stillness is not something to be kept. It is what remains when there is no grasping. And so, you learn to let go again, not as a lesson, but as a rhythm. Letting go becomes breathing. Each inhale takes in the world, and each exhale releases your need to possess it. Life flows through you rather than around you. You realize there was never a separation to begin with, only the illusion of one. In this stage of awakening, something else happens. You begin to see that others, too, are pretending to be separate. Every stranger becomes a mirror, every argument a lesson, every act of cruelty a cry for recognition. You begin to sense the shared ache of humanity, the longing to return home to something that was never lost. This understanding births compassion, not as an effort, but as a natural response. You see yourself in others because you finally see others as yourself. Now, compassion is often misunderstood. It is not pity, nor is it a soft sentiment. True compassion carries clarity. It does not enable illusions, but gently reveals them. When you act from compassion, you do not seek to fix anyone. You simply offer presence, a quiet reminder that they, too, are enough. And that, you see, is often the greatest healing of all, to be reminded that nothing is missing. This realization begins to dissolve fear. Fear thrives on separation. It feeds on the illusion that there is something outside you that can destroy what you are. But when you see that life and death, gain and loss, are movements of the same ocean, what is there to fear? The wave cannot fall out of the sea. It may rise and fall, but it never ceases to be water. Imagine for a moment a leaf floating down a stream. The leaf does not resist the current. It does not complain about where it is taken. It moves gracefully, not because it understands the river's path, but because it trusts the flow. You, too, can live this way. You can let yourself be carried, not by resignation, but by participation. You move with life instead of against it, and in doing so, discover that the current was never against you. As this understanding deepens, even suffering begins to look different. You stop asking, why me? And begin to wonder, what is this showing me? The pain doesn't vanish, but its meaning changes. It becomes a teacher, not an enemy. It softens the edges of the self, humbles the ego, opens the heart. You begin to see that the cracks are not signs of failure. They are the spaces through which the light enters. In time, even the idea of awakening fades. You no longer measure yourself against spiritual ideals or compare your progress to anyone else's. You simply live. You laugh when it's funny. You cry when it hurts. You fall. You rise. You begin again. You stop trying to be spiritual and start being human, which, ironically, is the most spiritual thing of all. The sages were never superhuman beings. They simply stopped pretending to be anything else. They embraced their humanity so fully that it became transparent, allowing the infinite to shine through it. To live like this is to understand that divinity is not somewhere else, waiting to be reached. It's here, looking out from behind your eyes, breathing through your lungs, pulsing in your veins. This is the quiet revolution of awareness. It doesn't announce itself with thunder or revelation. It arrives gently, like dawn through a half-open window. It changes everything by changing nothing, for it reveals that nothing needed changing. The self you were trying to fix was never broken. The world you were trying to save was never lost. To see this clearly is to rest at last. Not the rest of exhaustion, but the rest of arrival. You realize you've been home all along. Every detour, every mistake, every heartbreak was part of the journey back to what never moved. You laugh softly at the irony of it all, and in that laughter, a great peace arises. It's not the peace of escape, but the peace of inclusion. You can finally say yes to all of it, the confusion, the clarity, the birth, the death, the gain, the loss. You see that life's perfection is not in its smoothness, but in its completeness. It holds everything, and that wholeness is love. And so, you walk differently now. You no longer rush. You no longer grasp. You no longer wait for permission to be alive. You move through the world as a presence rather than a person, as an awareness rather than a role. And wherever you go, something silent and beautiful goes with you, reminding all who meet you that they, too, have never been lost. And then there comes a kind of quiet after the knowing, not the quiet of emptiness, but of fullness, as though life has finally exhaled and found itself resting in its own rhythm. You wake one morning and realize there is nothing left to search for. The seeking, the striving, even the idea of becoming someone better dissolves like mist in sunlight. You see, the moment you stop trying to arrive anywhere, you discover that you have always been here. This is the final unfolding of the journey, not a destination, but an absorption. The wave returns to the ocean, not by effort, but by remembering it was never apart. You, too, begin to live with that same natural ease. You no longer ask life for meaning, because you have become meaning itself. Everything you touch, everything you see, reflects the same still intelligence that lives within you. You start to laugh at the absurdity of the game we all play, the endless chase for validation, the frantic pursuit of success, the anxious clinging to permanence. You see it now as a cosmic dance, a play where the actors have simply forgotten it's a play. And rather than feeling superior or detached, you feel tenderness, because you remember what it was like to be caught in the script, to take every line so seriously. Compassion deepens, not as a virtue, but as understanding. You begin to notice that the boundaries between you and life are melting. The wind moves, and it feels like your breath. The rain falls, and it feels like your tears. Someone smiles on the street, and it feels like your own joy shining back at you. It's as if the whole world has turned into a mirror, reflecting only one truth. There was never two. And what becomes of fear in such a place? It loses its hold. Not because you have conquered it, but because you see through it. You see that fear was always a shadow cast by your forgetting. When you remember who you are, fear has nothing left to cling to. You realize that the great mystery of life has never been against you. It was only waiting for your cooperation. This doesn't make you invincible or indifferent. You still feel pain, you still grieve, you still stumble, but now there's a softness around it all, a kind of quiet trust that runs through every experience. You understand that sorrow and joy are not opposites, but two notes in the same song. You don't try to hold one or escape the other. You let them both play through you. And in that harmony, something timeless begins to hum. You realize that even death, that great unspoken fear, is not an ending but a rhythm, a return. It's the breath of the cosmos inhaling again. What you truly are cannot die because it was never born. It only takes form for a little while, to taste itself, to play. And when the play ends, it bows and becomes the stage once more. This understanding doesn't make you distant from the world. Quite the opposite. It draws you closer. You love more deeply, laugh more freely, forgive more easily. You no longer need to protect yourself from life, because you have recognized that you are life. Every moment becomes a prayer without words, an act of worship without worshippers. It's funny how we spend so much of our lives trying to control what was never ours. We fight the current, build walls, wear masks, and then one day you realize you don't have to do any of that anymore. You can let the river carry you. You can let the walls fall. You can let the masks drop. You can finally breathe. And in that breath, the world breathes with you. The trees sway in rhythm. The birds call in response. Even the silence feels alive. You begin to feel a subtle joy that asks for nothing, that depends on nothing. It's the joy of simply being. The kind of peace that doesn't need to be protected because it cannot be taken away. You look back at your life, all the mistakes, the detours, the heartbreaks, and you see the hidden intelligence woven through it all. Every fall was a doorway. Every delay, a redirection. Every ending, a beginning in disguise. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was wrong. It was all part of the unfolding, the remembering. And as you sit quietly, watching the sun dip below the horizon, you feel no need to hold on to it, no sorrow that it's fading, because you know it will rise again. Not because of belief, but because of rhythm. The same rhythm that moves your breath, that beats your heart, that carries the tides of the sea and the stories of your life. To live this way is not to transcend the human experience, but to be fully immersed in it without being consumed by it. You can taste the salt of tears and still smile. You can watch the seasons change without wishing them to stay. You can love without fear of loss, because you understand that love itself never leaves, only its forms change. This is what it means to awaken. Not to escape the dream, but to dream consciously. To know you are both the dreamer and the dream. You live in the world, but you are no longer bound by it. You participate in the drama, but you no longer mistake the stage for reality. You have come home to yourself, and in doing so, you have come home to the universe. And perhaps that's the most beautiful realization of all, that you were never lost, never broken, never unworthy. You were simply playing hide and seek with eternity, waiting for the moment when you'd stop searching and start seeing. Now you see. And seeing, you smile. Because the great secret, the one that sages have whispered through time, is beautifully simple. You are already what you seek. So you walk on, not to arrive, but to express, not to find meaning, but to reveal it. And as you walk, the universe walks with you, endlessly unfolding, endlessly returning, endlessly free. From the moment we wake in the morning until the moment we drift into sleep, there is a constant stream of words, images, judgments, and memories passing through the mind. It is like an endless conversation that never stops, a commentary on everything you do, everything you see, everything you remember, and everything you fear. And because it never stops, you begin to assume it must be you. After all, who else could it be? These are your thoughts, your worries, your plans, your stories. And so you equate yourself with this voice, believing that your entire identity is made up of what passes through the mind. But here is the problem. If you are your thoughts, why do you so often feel trapped by them? Why do your thoughts so often torment you, contradict you, sabotage you? Why do they seem to arrive uninvited, staying long after you wish they would go? Have you noticed how thoughts behave like guests who refuse to leave? You invite one in, perhaps a simple memory or a plan for tomorrow, and suddenly it has brought all its friends. Before you know it, you are hosting an entire party you never agreed to. Worries about money, arguments you've had, fantasies of revenge, daydreams of success. They chatter endlessly, refusing to leave the room. And because you mistake yourself for this party of thoughts, you begin to feel helpless. You think, this is who I am, a confused, anxious, restless mind. But is that true? Let us play a little game of attention. Close your eyes and listen to your thoughts. Watch them appear. Some are memories, some are images, some are just stray words. Now ask yourself, if you are your thoughts, then who is watching them? Notice there is an awareness that sees the thought come and go. That awareness is not the thought itself. It is like the sky in which the clouds drift. And this realization is deeply unsettling to the ego, because it means you are not what you always thought you were. You are not the voice in your head. You are the silence in which the voice appears. But for most of us, this confusion persists for our entire lives. We live identified with our thoughts. We cling to every idea, every belief, every worry, as though it were who we are. So when your mind says, you are worthless, you believe it. When it says, you will never succeed, you collapse into despair. When it says, you must be perfect, you live under impossible pressure. And yet, if you really were your thoughts, you would control them. You would simply choose better ones. But you cannot. The thoughts come and go, uninvited, like the wind. This is the problem of mistaking thoughts for self. You end up living like a puppet, jerked around by whatever idea happens to pass through the mind. Think of how exhausting it is to live this way. You lie awake at night, your mind racing. You replay conversations from the day. You imagine disasters that never happen. You judge yourself mercilessly for mistakes that only you remember. The result is suffering, anxiety, restlessness, a constant dissatisfaction. And because you believe these thoughts are you cannot escape. You think, this is just who I am. But what if it isn't? Imagine a radio left on in the background, playing all day. Sometimes it plays beautiful music. Sometimes it plays commercials you despise. Sometimes it interrupts with static or bad news. And yet, you would never mistake yourself for the radio. You simply hear it. But with thoughts, you forget this. You fuse with them. You identify with them. And so, instead of listening, you become entangled. This is why people suffer from overthinking. Because if you believe you are your thoughts, then every anxious idea becomes a threat to your very being. Every self-criticism cuts like a knife. Every worry about tomorrow becomes an existential crisis. And the tragedy is that none of it is true. They are just thoughts, flickers in the mind. But because you take them as yourself, they become chains. Consider the paradox. If you are your thoughts, then who is the one hearing them? Who is the one aware of the endless chatter? Clearly, you are not the thought itself, but the witness behind it. Yet, because this simple truth is so often overlooked, people spend their entire lives trapped in an illusion. They fight their own minds, trying desperately to control, suppress, or silence thoughts, not realizing that the struggle itself arises from the false belief that these thoughts are who they are. The problem, then, is not the thoughts themselves. Thoughts are natural, just as waves are natural on the ocean. The problem is that you cling to them, identify with them, mistake them for yourself, and so you suffer, tossed about by the storm, forgetting that you are not the waves, but the ocean. To see this clearly is the beginning of freedom. But before we can discover what that freedom looks like, we must first face honestly the trap we are in, because until you see the problem, you cannot let go of it. So ask yourself again, are you the voice in your head, or are you the silence that hears it? If the problem is mistaking yourself for your thoughts, then the resolution is seeing clearly that you are not them. And when you see this, something extraordinary happens. You discover a freedom that has always been there, hidden in plain sight, that has returned to the image of the sky and the clouds. Thoughts are like clouds, drifting, changing, forming shapes, breaking apart. Some are dark and heavy, some are light and beautiful. But the sky is never harmed by the clouds. It holds them, but it is not them. In the same way, you are not the thoughts that pass through your mind. You are the vast awareness in which they arise. And when you realize this, a profound shift occurs. You stop clinging to every passing thought as though it were life or death. You stop believing that the chatter in your head defines who you are. You begin to watch thoughts the way you might watch the wind rustle through the trees, present, but not binding. Notice this in practice. A thought arises, I am not good enough. Before, you would take it seriously, feel wounded by it, identify with it. Now, you simply notice, there is the thought that I am not good enough. And just like that, it begins to lose its power. The thought has not disappeared, but your identification with it has. And that makes all the difference. This is what the Buddhists call non-attachment. Not the suppression of thoughts, not the denial of them, but the refusal to confuse them with who you are. When you see a thought simply as a thought, you are free. It may still pass through, but it no longer commands you. And so, life becomes lighter. The anxious voice is still there, but it is only a voice. The self-critical story still arises, but it is only a story. You no longer fight with your own mind, because you no longer mistake it for yourself. Think of the relief this brings. The relief of no longer believing every worry, no longer collapsing under every judgment, no longer being tormented by every story your mind tells. Instead, you can smile at it, as you might smile at a child's imagination, vivid, dramatic, sometimes frightening, but ultimately harmless. Alan Watts often pointed out that you cannot get rid of your thoughts any more than you can smooth out the surface of the sea. The more you try, the more turbulent it becomes. So the secret is not to fight them, but to let them be, to let them come and go like waves, without needing to control them. For you are not the waves, you are the sea itself. And here is where life becomes miraculous. Because when you stop clinging to thoughts, you begin to experience moments of stillness. You notice the silence between thoughts. You realize that the mind is not a constant stream, but a series of flickers with gaps of awareness in between. And in those gaps, you discover something deeper than thought: presence itself. Presence is not something you think about. It is not a concept. It is the felt reality of being here and now. It is the taste of food, the warmth of the sun, the sound of laughter. It is life directly experienced before the mind comments on it. When you are no longer entangled in thoughts, you can finally experience life as its island. This is why your thoughts are not you. Because the you that is truly alive is not the commentary, but the awareness that hears it. And when you rest in that awareness, life opens up. Think of how this changes even the simplest things. Eating becomes an act of presence, not a distracted rush. Walking becomes a dance, not just a way of getting somewhere. Conversations become listening and sharing, not just waiting for your turn to speak. Life becomes richer because you are no longer lost in the endless chatter of the mind. Now, this does not mean thoughts disappear. They still come, they still go, but you no longer cling to them. You no longer build your identity out of them. And so you live in a freedom that is untouched by the storm. It is like learning to surf. At first, you are tossed around by every wave. You are frightened, overwhelmed, exhausted. But once you learn to balance, the waves are no longer a threat. They become the very medium of your joy. Thoughts are like that. When you are identified with them, they drown you. When you see them as passing waves, they become the rhythm of your play. And perhaps the most beautiful realization is this: the awareness behind thought is already free, already whole, already untouched. You do not need to create it. You only need to notice it. When a thought comes, you notice. When it goes, you notice. And in that noticing, you discover the vastness that was always there. So the invitation is simple. Stop trying to control your thoughts. Stop trying to be rid of them. Instead, see them for what they are: fleeting appearances, like echoes, like ripples on the surface of being. And in doing so, you discover what you truly are. Not the echo, but the silence. Not the ripple, but the depth. Not the thought, but the awareness in which all thoughts arise and dissolve. This is the liberation. This is why your thoughts are not you, because you are something far greater, the space in which the whole dance of thought, feeling, and life unfolds. And when you realize this, you are free.
Now here is a rather curious thing. You wake up one morning and something has changed. Not outside, mind you, but inside. You see through the games, the rat race, the endless pursuit of more. You understand, perhaps for the first time, that the meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. Yet everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. And then comes the peculiar problem. The bills still arrive, the rent is still due, the bank account still dwindles, and you find yourself in this strange position, spiritually awake but financially broke. What a cosmic joke this is. You look around and see people who are fast asleep, utterly unconscious, chasing money like hungry ghosts, and they seem to be doing rather well. Their bank accounts are full, their houses are large, their cars are new. And here you are, having seen through the illusion, and you cannot pay your electric bill. What is going on? Let me tell you something. This is not an accident. This is not some terrible mistake in the cosmic ordering of things. This is precisely how it must be, at least for a time. And if you understand why, you will stop fighting it, and you will begin to see the extraordinary gift hidden in this struggle. You see, money is a very peculiar thing. It is not wealth at all. It is a way of measuring wealth, a symbol, a token, a kind of social agreement. Real wealth is the air you breathe, the water you drink, the food that nourishes your body, the shelter that keeps you warm. Money is simply the bookkeeping. But we have become so enchanted with the bookkeeping that we have forgotten what it was supposed to represent. Think about it. Here is a man with $1 million in the bank. He sits in his office worrying about the stock market, checking his accounts, calculating his net worth. He has forgotten to taste his coffee. He has forgotten to feel the sun on his skin. He has forgotten that he is breathing. Ha ha ha. Is this man wealthy? Or is he so busy counting his tokens that he has lost touch with the actual treasure? When you awaken spiritually, something very interesting happens. You stop being hypnotized by the symbols. You stop mistaking the menu for the meal. The recipe is not the dinner. The map is not the territory. And suddenly, money loses its grip on you. It stops being the most important thing. It stops being the goal of your life. This is wonderful. This is liberation. But it creates a practical problem because the world around you has not woken up. The landlord still wants his rent in dollars, not in enlightenment. The grocer will not accept spiritual wisdom in exchange for bread. And so you find yourself caught between two worlds. Awake in a sleeping world, trying to live by one set of values while surrounded by another. Now, let me tell you why this happens to nearly everyone who begins to wake up. The first reason is very simple. When you awaken, you lose your motivation for the game. You see, most people work not because they love the work, but because they are afraid. Afraid of being poor, afraid of being judged, afraid of being left behind in the great race. Fear is the fuel that drives the economic machine. But when you wake up, the fear begins to dissolve. You realize that you came into this world with nothing, and you will leave with nothing. You understand that the purpose of life is not to arrive at death safely with a well-preserved bank account, but to skid in sideways, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, laughing all the way. The terror of poverty loses its teeth. And without that fear driving you, you naturally slow down. You stop clawing your way to the top. You stop sacrificing your present for some imaginary secure future. This is beautiful. This is health. But in a world organized around fear and competition, it means you will probably make less money, at least for a while. The second reason is that awakening has a way of making your old interests fall away. Think about it. Before you woke up, perhaps you were fascinated by climbing the corporate ladder, by impressing your neighbors, by acquiring status symbols. These things gave you energy. They motivated you. They got you out of bed in the morning. But then you see through them. You understand that status is just a game of make-believe, that the corporate ladder leads nowhere in particular, that your neighbors are not paying as much attention to you as you thought. And suddenly, these pursuits feel hollow. They feel like trying to polish plastic cups when you have discovered the mountain spring. You may still go to work. You may still pay your bills, but the fire has gone out of the old ambitions. You are no longer willing to sell your soul for a paycheck. You are no longer willing to spend hours doing work that feels meaningless just to accumulate more tokens. And naturally, this affects your financial situation. Now, here is the third reason, and this one is quite subtle. When you awaken, you become aware of how the money system actually works. And this awareness can make you somewhat reluctant to participate fully in it. You see that the whole economic game is based on fear, on scarcity, on the illusion that there is not enough to go around. You see how it turns people into competitors, into enemies, how it makes them forget their basic humanity. You understand that the person with the most money is not necessarily the most successful human being. In fact, you begin to suspect that the pursuit of wealth often creates a kind of poverty of spirit, a narrowing of consciousness, a loss of the very things that make life worth living. And so you hesitate. You hold back. You do not throw yourself completely into the game because you have seen the cost of winning. This is not laziness. This is wisdom. But it means you will probably not get rich, at least not in the conventional sense. Let me tell you a story. There was once a fisherman who lived by the sea. Every day he would go out in his small boat, catch enough fish to feed his family, and sell a few at the market. Then he would come home, have lunch with his wife, take a nap in the afternoon, play with his children in the evening, and spend the night making music with his friends. One day a wealthy businessman came to visit. He saw the fisherman resting in the afternoon and said, "Why are you not out fishing? You could catch more fish." "Why would I want to catch more fish?" the fisherman asked. "Well, if you caught more fish, you could sell them and make more money. And then what would I do with the money? You could buy a bigger boat," the businessman explained. "With a bigger boat, you could catch even more fish. Eventually, you could buy several boats, hire other people to fish for you, and become very wealthy." "And then what?" the fisherman asked. "Then you could retire and spend your days resting in the afternoon, playing with your children, and making music with your friends in the evening." The fisherman smiled. "But that is what I am doing now." Do you see? The fisherman had not failed to understand how to make money. He had simply seen through the illusion that making money was the point. He's already living the life that the businessman would spend years trying to earn. He was already wealthy in the only way that matters. When you wake up spiritually, you become more like the fisherman. You realize that the goal everyone is chasing is already available right now. The peace they hope to buy with retirement savings is available in this breath. The security they think money will provide is already here in the simple fact of being alive. The freedom they imagine wealth will bring is already present when you stop being enslaved by the need for more. But here is what happens next. Once you see this, once you really understand it, you face a choice. Do you continue to play the money game with full knowledge that it is just a game? Or do you drop out entirely? And this is where many awakened people get stuck. They think the answer is to reject money altogether, to become penniless wanderers. But this is just another trap. This is the ego in spiritual clothing. True awakening is not about rejecting money any more than it is about chasing it. It is about seeing money for what it actually is, a useful instrument, nothing more, nothing less. When you are truly awake, you can use money without being used by it. You can play the game without being played by the game. The question is not whether you should have money or not have money. The question is whether money has you. Can you hold it lightly? Can you use it when you need it and let it go when you do not? Can you make it without losing your soul and spend it without losing your freedom? This is the art. This is the dance. And it takes time to learn. This is why so many people who wake up go through a period of financial difficulty. They are learning to dance a new dance. They are discovering how to live in the world, but not be of it. They are finding out how to support themselves without selling themselves. And during this learning period, there will be struggles. The old ways of making money do not work anymore, because they required you to be asleep, to be driven by fear, to be motivated by greed. But the new ways have not yet revealed themselves. You are in the gap, the space between the old life and the new. And in this space there is often very little money. But listen carefully. This gap is sacred. This struggle is holy. You are not being punished. You are being transformed. The universe is not withholding abundance from you. It is teaching you a new relationship with abundance. Think of it this way. A snake must shed its old skin in order to grow. During the shedding process, it is vulnerable. Its old protection is falling away, and the new skin is not yet hardened. But if the snake tried to hold on to its old skin out of fear, it would die. It must go through the vulnerable period in order to grow into something larger. This is what is happening to you. Your old relationship with money, your old way of surviving in the world, it is falling away. And yes, it is uncomfortable. Yes, it is frightening. But if you try to cling to the old ways, if you try to go back to sleep just to feel financially secure, you will suffocate. You cannot unknow what you know. You cannot unsee what you have seen. The only way through is forward. The only way out is through. And on the other side of this difficulty, there is a new way of being in the world, a way that is both spiritually awake and financially functional, a way that allows you to have enough without needing to have everything, a way that allows you to work without making work your identity, a way that allows you to use money as a means without making it the end. But you have to trust the process. You have to have faith that the universe is not going to let you starve. After all, the birds do not have bank accounts, and yet they are fed. The flowers do not worry about their net worth, and yet they are clothed in beauty. If nature takes care of every sparrow, every blade of grass, will it not take care of you? This does not mean you sit back and do nothing. It does not mean you become irresponsible. It means you act from a different place. You act from love rather than fear. You work because the work is there to be done, not because you are trying to prove your worth. You earn money because money is useful, not because money is everything. And here is what I have observed. When people make this change, when they truly let go of the fear and start living from a place of trust, money often begins to flow more easily. Not always, not immediately, but eventually. Because when you are not grasping at money, when you are not strangling every opportunity with desperation, you become more creative. You become more relaxed. You become more attractive to work with, more pleasant to do business with, more open to possibilities. Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. When you stop thrashing about trying to force financial success, when you stop panicking about every bill, when you simply allow yourself to be present with what is, something shifts. The water begins to clear, solutions appear, opportunities arise. Not because you are trying to make them happen, but because you have stopped blocking them with your anxiety. But let me be very clear about something. This does not mean you will become wealthy in the conventional sense. You may never have $1 million in the bank. You may never own a large house or a fancy car, and that is perfectly fine, because you will have something far more valuable. You will have your life back. You will have your time. You will have your peace. You will have yourself. The spiritually awake person eventually discovers that there are two kinds of poverty. There is the poverty of not having enough money, which is temporary and can be solved. And there is the poverty of selling your soul for money, which is permanent and can destroy you. Better to be broke for a season than to be rich and dead inside forever. And so here you are, spiritually awake and financially struggling. What do you do? First, you stop fighting it. You stop seeing your financial difficulty as evidence that something is wrong with you, or that God has abandoned you, or that you have failed. You see it for what it is, a transition period, a time of learning, a sacred passage from one way of being to another. Second, you do what you can do. You find work that does not violate your soul. You pay your bills as best you can. You live simply. You ask for help when you need it. There is no shame in this. The universe takes care of itself through people helping each other. Allow yourself to be helped. Third, you trust. You trust that you are exactly where you need to be. You trust that this difficulty has something to teach you. You trust that the same intelligence that grew your body from a single cell, that beats your heart without your effort, that breathes you while you sleep, this intelligence is not going to abandon you now. You are held. You are supported. You are loved. Not by money, but by the source of all things. And finally, you remember what you have already learned. The meaning of life is not in having, or achieving, or accumulating. The meaning of life is in the living itself, in the breathing, in the seeing, in the tasting. You are already rich beyond measure if you would only stop long enough to notice. You have eyes that can see a sunset. You have ears that can hear music. You have a body that can feel the warmth of the sun. You have a mind that can know wonder. You have a heart that can feel love. These are the real treasures. These are what matter, and they cannot be bought or sold. So yes, You may be broke, but you are awake. And that awakening is worth more than all the money in all the banks, in all the world. Because money can buy you many things, but it cannot buy you consciousness. It cannot buy you freedom. It cannot buy you the peace of knowing who you really are. You are not a person who has or does not have money. You are the awareness in which having and not having appear and disappear like clouds in the sky. The clouds come and go, but the sky remains. You are the sky, and the sky is never poor, never lacking, never in need. This does not pay the rent, I know, but it changes everything about how you relate to the rent. It means you can face financial difficulty without losing yourself. It means you can be broke without being broken. It means you can struggle without despair, because you know that your worth is not measured in dollars, and your life is not defined by your bank balance. The spiritually awake are often financially struggling not because they are being punished, but because they are learning something the sleeping world has forgotten. They are learning that life is not about money. They are learning that the real wealth is consciousness itself. They are learning that you can live richly on very little if you are awake enough to see the abundance that is already here. This learning takes time. This learning costs something. Sometimes what it costs is money. But what you gain in return is invaluable. You gain your soul. You gain your freedom. You gain the ability to live in this world without being consumed by it. You gain the wisdom to use money without being used by it. And eventually, in ways you cannot predict and according to a timeline you cannot control, the financial situation often begins to improve. Not because you go back to sleep and start chasing money again, but because you have learned to be awake and functional at the same time. You have learned to meet the practical demands of life without forgetting the spiritual truth of life. But even if the money never comes, even if you live your whole life with very little, you will still be wealthier than those who have everything but know nothing. Because you know who you are. You know what matters. You know that you are the universe, looking at itself through these particular eyes, breathing itself through these particular lungs, experiencing itself through this particular life. And that, my friends, is the real gold. Everything else is just paper. So if you are spiritually awake and financially struggling, take heart, you are not doing it wrong. You are going through what must be gone through. Trust the process. Do what you can. And remember always that the one who is struggling is not who you really are. The real you, the awareness that watches all of this, cannot be touched by poverty or wealth. It simply is, and it is enough. The meaning of life is just to be alive. Not to be rich, not to be successful, not to prove anything or achieve anything or accumulate anything. Just to be alive, to breathe, to see, to feel, to know. And this you are already doing. This you have always been doing. This you cannot fail to do. So play the game of money if you must. Pay your bills. Feed yourself. Take care. You know, there comes a moment in many people's lives when everything suddenly feels utterly pointless. The job that once seemed important now feels like a meaningless charade. The relationships that once brought joy now feel like empty performances. The goals you were chasing now seem arbitrary and hollow. And you look at your life and think, what's the point of any of this? Why am I doing what I'm doing? What does any of it matter? This is not depression, necessarily, though it might look like it from the outside. This is something much more interesting. This is what happens when you wake up from the collective dream, when you start to see through the game that everyone is playing, when the meaning that you borrowed from society begins to dissolve, and you're left facing the raw question, what is the point? Now, most people respond to this feeling in one of two ways, and both are problematic. The first response is panic. They feel the pointlessness and immediately try to run from it, to distract themselves, to create new meanings, new goals, new purposes. They throw themselves into work, into relationships, into causes, into addictions, anything to avoid sitting with that uncomfortable feeling that nothing matters. The second response is resignation. They accept the pointlessness as a final truth and sink into a kind of nihilistic despair. If nothing matters, why do anything? Why get out of bed? Why engage with life at all? They become paralyzed by the very insight that could have freed them. But I want to suggest a third response, a response that's actually quite revolutionary. What if the feeling that everything is pointless is not a problem to be solved, but a doorway to be walked through? What if it's not the end of meaning, but the beginning of a much deeper kind of meaning? Let me explain what I mean. When you feel that everything is pointless, what you're really recognizing is that all the meanings you've been living by are invented. They're made up. They're stories that human beings have told themselves to make sense of existence. And there's nothing wrong with stories, but when you realize that they're just stories, that there's no cosmic necessity to any of them, something very important has happened. You've seen through the game. You've recognized that meaning is not found, it's created. And once you see this, you can never go back to the innocent belief that your job or your relationship or your cause has some inherent, absolute meaning. The spell is broken. And this feels pointless at first because you've lost the meanings you were borrowing from outside yourself. Society told you that success matters, that family matters, that progress matters, that leaving a legacy matters. And you believed it. You made these borrowed meanings your own and built your life around them. But now you've seen that these are just agreements, just collective stories that we've decided to take seriously. And once you see the arbitrary nature of these meanings, they lose their power over you. And yes, this creates a void, a sense of pointlessness. But this void is not the end, it's the beginning. You see, as long as you're living according to borrowed meanings, you're not really free. You're like an actor who's so identified with their role that they've forgotten their acting. You take the script seriously because you think it's real, because you think it matters in some absolute sense. But when you realize it's just a script, just a story, you're suddenly free to play the role differently, or to choose a different role entirely, or to write your own script. The feeling of pointlessness is the recognition of your freedom. It's the moment when you realize that you don't have to live according to anyone else's definitions of what matters. You're free to decide for yourself what's meaningful, what's worth doing, how you want to spend your brief time in this strange existence. But here's where most people make a mistake. They think that because nothing has inherent meaning, they now need to create meaning, to impose meaning on a meaningless universe. And so they go searching for their purpose, their passion, their mission. They think they need to figure out what their life is supposed to be about and then dedicate themselves to it. But this is just another trap. This is taking the feeling of pointlessness and trying to cover it up with a new story, a new meaning, a self-created purpose. And while this might work for a while, it's ultimately just another game, just another way of avoiding the deeper truth. The deeper truth is this: life doesn't need a point. Existence doesn't require justification. You don't need a reason to be here or a purpose to fulfill. The question, what's the point, is itself based on a misunderstanding, on the assumption that there should be a point, that meaning is something life owes you. But what if life is not a journey towards some goal, not a problem to be solved, not a story that needs a satisfying conclusion? What if life is more like music or dance? You don't listen to a symphony in order to reach the end. You don't dance in order to arrive somewhere. The point of music is the music itself. The point of dancing is the dancing itself. It's not going somewhere. It's already here, fully present in each moment. In the same way, the point of life is simply living, simply being, simply the experience of existence itself. Not for anything, not toward anything, but as an end in itself. This very moment, exactly as it is the point. This breath, this sensation, this thought, this feeling, this is it. There's nothing else you need to get to, nothing else you need to achieve, no higher meaning you need to discover. When you really understand this, when you truly see that life doesn't need justification, something remarkable happens. The feeling of pointlessness transforms into something else entirely. It becomes a kind of lightness, a freedom, a playfulness. If there's no ultimate point, if there's no cosmic significance to anything you do, then you're free to simply enjoy the process of living without the burden of having to make it mean something. You can work at your job without needing it to be your calling. You can love someone without needing them to complete you. You can pursue goals without needing to achieve them. You can create things without needing them to be important. You can play the game of life with full intensity while knowing it's just a game. This is what I mean when I say the feeling of pointlessness is a doorway. It's the doorway out of seriousness, out of the heavy burden of trying to make your life matter, out of the exhausting project of creating meaning. On the other side of that doorway is a kind of freedom that most people never experience. The freedom to live without needing life to be anything other than what it is. Now, this doesn't mean you become passive or apathetic. Quite the opposite. When you're no longer burdened by the need to make everything meaningful, you're actually more free to engage fully with life. You can throw yourself into activities with complete abandon, not because they matter in some ultimate sense, but simply because they're what's happening, because they're the form that life is taking in this moment. Think about a child playing. The child isn't worried about the meaning of the game. The child isn't asking, what's the point of playing? The child is simply absorbed in the playing itself, fully present, fully engaged. And then the game ends, and the child moves on to something else without any sense that the game needed to have a lasting purpose or significance. This is how you can live when you've walked through the doorway of pointlessness. You can engage with life fully and passionately, and then let it go and move on to the next moment, the next game, the next experience. Nothing needs to be permanent. Nothing needs to be ultimately meaningful. Everything can be enjoyed for what it is, in the moment that it's happening. But what about the big questions? What about death? What about suffering? What about the fact that everything you do will eventually be forgotten? That the universe will end? That nothing you create will last forever? Doesn't this make everything pointless? Only if you think the point of life is to leave a permanent mark, to create something that lasts, to be remembered. But why should that be the point? The sunset is beautiful, and then it's gone. The flower blooms, and then it wilts. The wave rises, and then it falls back into the ocean. Nothing about the temporary nature of these things makes them less valuable, less beautiful, less worth experiencing. In fact, it's precisely because things are temporary that they're precious. If the sunset lasted forever, would you still stop to watch it? If flowers never wilted, would you treasure them? The poignancy of life, its bittersweet beauty, comes from the fact that it's fleeting, that each moment happens only once, that everything is always already passing away, even as it's arriving. So when everything feels pointless, when you look at your life and can't find the meaning you once thought was there, this is not a crisis. This is an opportunity. It's the opportunity to stop living for some imaginary future point, some goal or achievement or legacy, and to start living for the sheer fact of being alive, for the immediate experience of existence. What do you do when everything feels pointless? You stop asking what the point is. You stop trying to justify your existence or prove your worth or make your life matter. You simply live. You breathe, you eat, you walk, you talk, you work, you play, you love, you create, not because any of it means something in the grand scheme of things, but because this is what life is. This is what's happening. This is the dance you're dancing. And in this surrender, in this letting go of the need for meaning, you might discover something surprising. You might discover that life becomes more vivid, more immediate, more alive when you stop trying to make it mean something. Colors are brighter when you're not worried about their significance. Food tastes better when you're not concerned with its purpose. Relationships are more intimate when you're not using them to fill some void. The pointlessness, when you really embrace it, becomes a kind of freedom. It's the freedom to be completely here, completely present, completely engaged with what is, without the overlay of meaning, without the weight of significance, without the burden of purpose. Let me tell you a Zen story that illustrates this. A student comes to the master and says, "Master, I've studied all the scriptures, I've practiced all the techniques, I've contemplated all the koans, but still, I don't understand. What is the meaning of life?" And the master says, "Have you eaten your breakfast?" The student says, "Yes." The master says, "Then go wash your bowl." You see, the student is looking for some grand cosmic meaning, some ultimate purpose. But the master is pointing to the simple fact of living. Eat your breakfast, wash your bowl. This moment, this activity, this simple fact of existence, this is it. There's nothing else you need to find, nothing else you need to understand. When everything feels pointless, this is what you do. You eat your breakfast, you wash your bowl, you do what's in front of you to do, not because it has some grand meaning, but because this is the form that life is taking right now. You're here, you're alive, and this is what being alive looks like in this moment. And gradually, if you stay with this, if you don't run back to searching for meaning or sink into despair, you begin to notice something. You begin to notice that the question itself dissolves. What's the point? Stops being a relevant question. It's like asking what the point of a sunset is, or what the purpose of a mountain is, or what a river means. These questions don't make sense because these things don't exist for any reason beyond themselves. They're not means to an end. They're ends in themselves. And so are you. You're not here to accomplish something, or to fulfill some purpose, or to make your life mean something. You're here because you're here. You're alive because you're alive. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. So when everything feels pointless, celebrate. You've seen through the game. You've recognized that all the meanings you were chasing were just stories. And now you're free. Free to live without the burden of having to make it all matter. Free to enjoy the sunset without needing it to teach you a lesson. Free to love without needing it to complete you. Free to work without needing it to define you. Free to simply be alive for no reason at all. This is the great liberation that comes from walking through the doorway of pointlessness. On the other side, you discover that life was never about the point. You've probably noticed this peculiar phenomenon, haven't you? You go to a gathering, a party, some social event, and you watch the people around you. They're animated, energized, feeding off the crowd like they're plugging into some great cosmic battery. They get louder as the evening goes on, more expansive, more alive. And then there's you, standing in the corner perhaps, or making your way through the motions. And with each passing hour you can feel something draining out of you, like someone opened a tap at the bottom of your being, and your life force is slowly trickling away. And you wonder, what's wrong with me? Why am I not like them? Why does this thing that seems to enliven everyone else leave me feeling utterly depleted, exhausted, sometimes even a bit desperate to escape? Well, let me tell you something. There's nothing wrong with you. Nothing at all. What you're experiencing is not a deficiency or a flaw in your design. You're simply wired differently. And the world, in its infinite wisdom, created both kinds of beings for very good reasons. You see, we've been sold this idea that the extroverted way of being is the right way, the healthy way, the normal way. That if you're not energized by crowds, if you don't seek out constant stimulation and interaction, then something must be broken in you. But this is nonsense, complete and utter nonsense. It's like saying that because some flowers bloom in full sunlight, the ones that prefer shade are somehow defective. The universe expresses itself in infinite variety. Some creatures are nocturnal, some diurnal, some hunt in packs, others alone. And among humans, some of us are built to process the world internally, in depth, in silence and solitude. We're not lesser versions of extroverts. We're different instruments in the orchestra, playing different notes, and both are necessary for the symphony. Now, what's actually happening at these gatherings that leaves you so drained? Let me explain it to you, because once you understand the mechanism, you'll stop pathologizing yourself and start honoring your own nature. When you walk into a room full of people, your nervous system begins doing something quite extraordinary. It's reading the room, not just consciously, but at levels far below conscious awareness. You're picking up on tones of voice, facial micro-expressions, body language, the subtle emotional currents flowing between people. You're processing an enormous amount of data, far more than you realize. The extrovert in the room is doing something different. They're broadcasting. They're putting out energy, and they're getting energy back from the responses they receive. It's an exchange, you see. And for them, it's energizing, because they're built for this kind of external processing. Their nervous system is designed to engage with the outer world in this direct, immediate way. But you're taking it all in. You're like a sponge, absorbing the emotional weather of the room. And here's the thing, you're not just observing it from a distance, you're actually feeling it. When someone in the room is anxious, you feel that anxiety in your own body. When there's tension between two people across the room, you sense it like a disturbance in the field. You're not just at the party, you're processing the party at a much deeper level. And this takes energy, tremendous energy. It's like the difference between watching a river from the shore and swimming in it. The extrovert is on the shore, watching, commenting, enjoying the view. You're in the water, feeling every current, every change in temperature, every bit of turbulence. Of course you're going to be tired afterward. You've been working, even though it doesn't look like work to the outside world. There's another aspect to this that's crucial to understand. Most social gatherings operate on a certain level of pretense. People are performing their social selves. They're not being authentic, not really. They're playing the game, wearing the mask, presenting the version of themselves that's acceptable, pleasant, appropriate. And for most people, this is fine. They can slip into the role quite easily, and they don't even notice they're doing it. But you notice. You notice the gap between what people are saying and what they're actually feeling. You notice the forced laughter, the polite lies, the conversations that are all surface and no substance. And this creates a kind of dissonance in you, a friction, because you can't quite participate in the pretense with the same ease. You want something real, something genuine, some actual connection beneath all the social choreography. And so you're caught. You're at this gathering, trying to play the game because that's what's expected, but simultaneously aware that it's a game. It's like being in a play where everyone else has forgotten their actors and thinks the stage is real life, and you're the only one who can still see the scenery for what it is. This awareness is exhausting. This double consciousness, being in the experience while simultaneously being aware of the artificiality of the experience, it takes a toll. Now, contrast this with what happens when you're alone. When you're alone, you can drop all the masks. You don't have to perform. You don't have to manage anyone else's emotional state or navigate complex social dynamics. You can just be. And in that being, in that simple, uncomplicated existence, there's a profound rest. The extrovert experiences being alone differently. For them, solitude can feel empty, understimulating. They need the external input, the interaction, the stimulation of other minds and personalities to feel fully alive. But for you, solitude is not deprivation, it's restoration. It's where you recharge. It's where you process all that input you've been absorbing, where you integrate your experiences, where you reconnect with yourself. This is why, after a gathering, you often need a significant recovery period. You're not just tired from staying up late or from the physical activity. You're tired because you've been processing vast amounts of subtle information, maintaining your social performance, managing the dissonance between authenticity and pretense, and absorbing the emotional field of everyone around you. You need time to discharge all of that, to let your nervous system settle, to return to your baseline. And here's what society doesn't tell you, what you need to understand in your bones. This is not a weakness. This is not something to be fixed or overcome. The depth of processing you're capable of, the sensitivity of your perception, these are gifts. Yes, they come with challenges. Yes, they make certain situations more difficult. But they also allow you to see things others miss, to understand at levels others cannot reach, to experience life with a richness and depth that the purely extroverted person may never know. The problem is not that you're drained by social gatherings. The problem is that we live in a society that has organized itself around extroverted values and then pathologized everyone who doesn't fit that mold. We've created a world where constant interaction is valued over deep reflection, where breadth of social connection is prized over depth of understanding, where being the life of the party is seen as superior to being the thoughtful observer in the corner. But think about what the world would lose if everyone was an extrovert. Who would do the deep thinking? Who would create the art, write the books, make the scientific discoveries that require long hours of solitary focus? Who would see the patterns that emerge only in quiet contemplation? Who would understand the subtle truths that reveal themselves only to those who know how to be still? The universe needs both. It needs the ones who are energized by interaction and the ones who are energized by solitude. It needs the broadcasters and the receivers. It needs those who skim along the surface of life and those who dive into the depths. Both are necessary. Both are valuable. Both are exactly as they should be. So when you find yourself at a gathering, feeling that familiar drain beginning, you can make a choice. You can honor your nature instead of fighting it. You can leave early without guilt. You can find the one or two people there who are capable of real conversation and spend your time with them rather than trying to work the whole room. You can take breaks, step outside, give yourself moments of quiet in the midst of the noise. And you can stop measuring yourself against the extroverts in the room. Stop thinking that their way of being is the right way and yours is the wrong way. They're playing their instrument, you're playing yours. Neither is better, they're just different notes in the same cosmic song. What you're experiencing at these gatherings is not pathology. It's sensitivity. It's depth. It's a particular way of processing reality that has its own wisdom, its own gifts, its own place in the grand scheme of things. The drain you feel is simply the cost of being built for depth in a world that often operates on the surface. But here's the beautiful thing. Once you truly accept this about yourself, once you stop trying to be something you're not, once you honor your need for solitude and limited social interaction, you'll find that the social interactions you do have become more meaningful. Because you're no longer scattering your energy, trying to be like everyone else. You're being yourself, and that authenticity attracts the kind of connections that actually nourish rather than drain you. You'll find your people. The other deep processors, the other ones who prefer one profound conversation to 10 superficial ones, the other ones who know that silence between two people can be more intimate than any words. And with these people, gathering won't feel like such a drain, because there's less pretense, less performance, more genuine meeting. So the next time you're at a gathering and you feel that drain beginning, remember this: you're not broken, you're not antisocial, you're not defective. You're a different kind of instrument, built for a different kind of music. And the world needs your music just as much as it needs the loud, bright songs of the extroverts. Honor your nature, protect your energy, and trust that being exactly who you are is not just okay, it's necessary.